Remember Gladys Knight and the PIPS? The velvet voice of Gladys, the smooth harmonies of the PIPS. Together, they weren't just chart toppers. They were the soul of a generation. In this video, we take you back to where it all began. Atlanta, 1952, when a group of young family members formed the PIPS and began a journey that would lead to Grammy wins and lasting musical legacy. But behind the fame lies a deeper story of family, reinvention, sacrifice, and bittersweet goodbyes. Who were the original voices behind this iconic sound? What happened to them through the years? And in 2025, who still carries the legacy? Join us as we explore the then and now of Gladys Knight and the PIPS, from the smoky stages of the 1950s to their enduring influence today. Where it all began. The story of Gladys Knight and the PIPS begins not on a grand stage, but at a family birthday party in Atlanta, Georgia. In 1952, 8-year-old Gladys Knight had just won first prize on Ted Mack's Original Amateur Hour, a moment that hinted at the incredible career ahead. That same year, on September 4th, during a celebration for her brother Bubba's 10th birthday, fate took a curious turn. When the record player broke, someone suggested they sing instead. Gladys, Bubba, their sister Brenda, and cousins William and Eleanor Guest gathered around and performed together for the first time. That impromptu moment sparked something real, and under the encouragement of Gladys's mother, Elizabeth Knight, they decided to form a group. They named themselves the PIPS, inspired by the nickname of their cousin, James "Pip" Woods. By 1955, the PIPS were a local sensation on Atlanta's talent show circuit, winning contest after contest. Their momentum caught the attention of Brunswick Records, which signed them in 1957. Although their first two singles failed to chart, they began opening for rising stars like Jackie Wilson and Sam Cooke, an early sign of their growing credibility. But changes soon came. In 1959, Brunswick dropped the group, and both Brenda Knight and Eleanor Guest left to start families. Their departure paved the way for a new lineup. Cousin Edward Patton and family friend Langston George joined the group. Both had previous experience in another vocal group, and their addition brought a new dynamic to the PIPS just as they were finding their sound. The rise of a name. Gladys Knight and the PIPS breakthrough. By 1961, something big was starting to happen. The group, still known then as the PIPS, recorded a song penned by Johnny Otis called "Every Beat of My Heart." At the time, they didn't even have a record deal, but a local Atlanta label, Huntum Records, believed in them enough to promote the track. Huntum eventually secured a distribution deal with VJ Records, helping push the single into national circulation. That same year, the group moved to New York in search of bigger opportunities. There, they auditioned for Bobby Robinson of Fury Records. But Robinson soon realized the original version of "Every Beat of My Heart" was already climbing the charts, without the group seeing much profit. To take back control, he had them re-record the track and release it through Fury. Surprisingly, both versions made it onto the Billboard charts. The Huntum VJ release soared all the way to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was around this time that the group adopted a new name, Gladys Knight and the PIPS. Later that year, they followed up their success with "Letter Full of Tears," which cracked the top 40 in early 1962. But soon after, momentum slowed. Langston George left the group, and even more significantly, Gladys Knight stepped away to start a family with her husband, musician Jimmy Newman. Their son, James Gaston Newman III, was born in August 1962, followed by daughter Kenya in November 1963. While Gladys focused on motherhood, the PIPS kept performing and recording, though without much attention. Each member eventually took on side jobs, and Gladys occasionally performed solo with Newman as her musical director. But the bond that formed the group wasn't so easily broken. By the end of 1963, Gladys reunited with the PIPS, and together they signed with a local New York label, Max Records. With Jimmy Newman still involved as musical director, they entered a new chapter of growth and refinement. Behind the scenes, they were being shaped by two key mentors, Maurice King and legendary choreographer Charlie "Pops" Atkins. Atkins, who had been guiding them since their early days in Detroit, helped craft the high-energy stage routines that became their signature. His fast-stepping choreography elevated their live shows and made them stand out, even when record sales lagged behind. In his autobiography, Class Act, The Jazz Life of Choreographer Charlie Atkins, he recalled, "The one thing I was pleased about was a stipulation in my contract that allowed me to keep working with Gladys Knight and the Pips as personal clients even though I would be an employee of Motown Records." To tell the truth, Gordy wasn't too happy about it at first, but this is something I would not compromise under any circumstances. By that time, Gladys and the guys were like my own children. Their hard work paid off. In 1964, they landed another top 40 hit with Giving Up, written by Van McCoy. They also released a series of well-received tracks under Max Records, including Lovers Always Forgive, Go Away, Stay Away, Either Way I Lose, If I Should Ever Fall in Love, and Stop and Get a Hold of Myself. Though commercial superstardom still lay ahead, Gladys Knight and the Pips had found their identity and earned a reputation as one of the most electrifying live acts on the circuit. The charts were finally paying attention. But more importantly, so was the industry. From the sidelines to the spotlight, Gladys Knight and the Pips at Motown. By the end of 1965, Motown Records founder Berry Gordy had his eye on a new act, Gladys Knight and the Pips. But not everyone was immediately on board. Gladys Knight herself was hesitant. She worried that Motown's biggest stars, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, the Temptations, would always take center stage, leaving her group overlooked. But the rest of the Pips felt differently. They saw opportunity, not competition. Knight was outvoted, and in 1966, the group officially signed with Motown. They were placed under the label's Soul Records division, home to artists with a deeper R&B sound rather than polished pop. Their first Motown single, Just Walk in My Shoes, became a hit in the UK. But behind the scenes, tensions were already brewing. The label had overdubbed the Andantes, Motown's go-to female backing vocalists, over the Pips' own harmonies. For a group known for its rich, tight-knit vocal blend, it was a deal-breaker. They demanded that the Andantes never appear on their recordings again. Unlike many of their Motown peers, Gladys Knight and the Pips were rarely featured on the label's famed Motown Revue tours. One of their few appearances was at a Christmas showcase at Detroit's Fox Theater, which was later recorded for the album Motown Revue Live. Despite these early bumps, their music began gaining traction. Their second UK charting single, Take Me in Your Arms and Love Me, was followed by Everybody Needs Love, which became their first American charting single in 2 years, reaching number 39 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 3 on the R&B chart in 1967. Still, the group often felt like outsiders within the Motown machine. In the A&E biography series, Knight later recalled, Diana and the Supremes, the Temptations, and Marvin Gaye were given all the hits, while we took the leftovers. In her autobiography, Between Each Line of Pain and Glory, Knight also claimed that Diana Ross personally had them removed as the Supremes' opening act on a 1968 tour because they were too good. Ironically, that same year, the group would release the very single that catapulted them to Motown stardom. I Heard It Through the Grapevine. It climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit number 1 on the R&B charts, selling over 2.5 million copies, making it Motown's best-selling single at the time. Though Marvin Gaye's version, released later in 1968, would eclipse their numbers with 4 million copies sold, the Pips had finally broken through. At the same time, Knight was helping shape Motown's future. After performing at a political rally in Gary, Indiana, she became one of the first to recommend that Berry Gordy sign a promising young act she'd seen, the Jackson 5. Though Diana Ross would later be credited with their discovery, Knight's early endorsement was crucial. Following the success of Grapevine, the group began working regularly with producer Norman Whitfield. Together, they created a string of hits: The End of Our Road, It Should Have Been Me, Friendship Train, Nitty Gritty, and You Need Love Like I Do, Don't You? In 1969, they teamed up with Ashford and Simpson for Didn't You Know You'd Have to Cry Sometime? Their next wave of success came in the early 70s. The deeply emotional ballad If I Were Your Woman became their second million seller. Then came I Don't Want to Do Wrong, another self-composed track that resonated with audiences and achieved platinum status. Both singles were featured on their first #1 album, If I Were Your Woman. In late 1971, the group released their soulful rendition of Chris Christopherson's Help Me Make It Through the Night, which became an international hit. But it was their 1972 release, Neither One of Us Wants to Be the First to Say Goodbye, that would prove to be a game-changer. The song, written by Jim Weatherly, became their final single with Motown and their biggest yet. As it climbed the charts, the group tried to negotiate a better contract, but the talks collapsed. In February 1973, Gladys Knight and the Pips left Motown and signed with Buddah Records. Neither One of Us reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the group their first Grammy Award for Best Pop Performance by a duo or group with vocals. Motown hadn't always treated them like stars, but by the time they walked away, they were undeniable, riding the midnight train to Buddah Records. After parting ways with Motown, Gladys Knight and the Pips found a new home at Buddah Records, a move that would soon take their career to extraordinary heights. One of their first releases with Buddah was another Jim Weatherly-penned ballad, Where Peaceful Waters Flow. Interestingly, it was released around the same time that Neither One of Us, their final Motown single, was still climbing the charts, along with Motown's own follow-up single, Daddy Could Swear, I Declare. The overlap caused some confusion, but Where Peaceful Waters Flow still managed to find modest success. Then, in August 1973, everything changed. The group released Midnight Train to Georgia, another Weatherly composition. The song exploded, rising to #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the R&B charts. More than just a hit, it became their signature song, cementing their place in music history. The momentum didn't stop there. Their next album, Imagination, went platinum and delivered 2 more top 10 hits, I've Got to Use My Imagination and Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. It marked the beginning of a golden run with Buddah Records, with the group releasing a string of million-selling albums, including the soundtrack to the film Claudine and the albums I Feel a Song and Second Anniversary. In 1975, at the height of their popularity, the group even landed a mid-season variety show on NBC, The Gladys Knight and the Pips Show. It ran for 4 episodes and showcased their charm beyond the recording studio. During this period, hit after hit kept coming. I Feel a Song, In My Heart, Part-Time Love, Love Finds Its Own Way, and their emotional live medley, The Way We Were, Try to Remember. But by 1977, trouble returned, this time in the form of legal disputes. The group found themselves entangled in contractual conflicts with both Motown and Buddah Records. When they requested to be released from their Buddah deal, the label pushed back. While the dispute dragged on, the group was forced to work on side projects. Between 1978 and 1980, Gladys Knight released 2 solo albums, while the Pips put out 2 records of their own. During this strange and fractured time, they remained playful in public. In one memorable segment on The Richard Pryor Show, the Pips, without Gladys, performed their signature backup harmonies for I Heard It Through the Grapevine and Midnight Train to Georgia. When it came time for Gladys's parts, the camera panned to an empty mic, poking fun at the situation while still honoring the music. Despite the behind-the-scenes chaos, the bond between Knight and the Pips held strong. They continued performing together throughout this transitional period, which ultimately ended in 1980 when the group signed a fresh new deal with Columbia Records. Later years and disbandment. In 1980, Gladys Knight and the Pips kicked off a fresh chapter by signing with Columbia Records. It was a reunion of sorts, not just for the group, but with their longtime collaborators, the songwriting and production duo Ashford and Simpson. Together, they created the album About Love, which featured charting singles like Taste of Bitter Love, Bourgie Bourgie, and Landlord. Their chemistry with Ashford and Simpson continued into their 1981 follow-up, Touch, which included the powerful single I Will Fight and a soulful cover of I Will Survive. That same year, the group lent their signature harmonies to Kenny Rogers' remake of Bobby Blue Bland's classic Share Your Love With Me. It wasn't the first time they crossed paths with Rogers. The group had appeared on his TV show with The First Edition back in the early 1970s. Their musical connection lasted for years. Knight even appeared on his 1986 special, Kenny Rogers' Classic Weekend, where the two performed a duet of Am I Too Late?, a song they had each recorded separately. 3 years later, they teamed up once more for the adult contemporary hit If I Knew Then What I Know Now, which landed in the Billboard AC Top 10. After a year-long international tour, the group returned to the studio in 1983 to record their third Columbia album, Visions. The project marked a triumphant return to the top of the R&B charts with the funky and infectious lead single, Save the Overtime for Me. It became their first #1 R&B hit in 8 years and was accompanied by a trailblazing music video that embraced the rising influence of hip-hop culture, one of the earliest R&B videos to do so. Another standout from the album, You're #1, in my book, also made a strong impact on the R&B charts. While the group remained active, Gladys Knight began exploring solo opportunities. She joined Dionne Warwick, Elton John, and Stevie Wonder for the charity anthem That's What Friends Are For, which soared to #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B charts. In 1987, the group signed with MCA Records and released what would become their final studio album, All Our Love. The record was certified gold and produced 2 major hits, Lovin' on Next to Nothin', and their Grammy-winning #1 R&B single, Love Overboard. A year later, in 1988, Gladys Knight and the Pips received the Soul Train Music Award for Career Achievement, a fitting tribute to a group whose influence had spanned nearly 4 decades. That same year, they embarked on their farewell tour. After 37 years of performing together, Gladys Knight and the Pips officially disbanded at the end of the tour. Gladys made the decision to fully pursue her solo career, bringing to a close one of the most enduring and beloved partnerships in soul and R&B history. They didn't just leave behind hits, they left behind a legacy. Where are the members today? Gladys Knight, the Empress of Soul, still reigns. Gladys Maria Knight, born on May 28, 1944, has long been known as the Empress of Soul, and for good reason. With a voice that could soar, soothe, and shake the soul, she became one of the defining artists of the 20th century. A 7-time Grammy Award winner, Knight rose to fame with Gladys Knight and the Pips, delivering unforgettable hits throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. When the group parted ways with Motown in 1973 and signed with Buddha Records, they found even greater mainstream success, scoring Grammy-winning hits and reaching new audiences. By the late 1970s, legal disputes forced Knight and the Pips to begin recording separately. It was during this time that she released her first solo LP, Miss Gladys Knight. Though the group would reunite for one final album in 1987, All Our Love, Knight ultimately made the decision to fully embark on a solo career. In 1991, she released her most successful solo record, Good Woman, under MCA Records, solidifying her place not just as a group leader, but as a solo powerhouse. Even in later decades, Knight remained active. In 2010, music producer Randy Jackson revealed that he had returned to the studio with her for a new project. That same year, she released the single Settle, showing fans that her voice and spirit remained strong. Knight continued to captivate audiences with live performances. In 2009, she kicked off what was billed as her farewell tour in the United Kingdom. But fans weren't ready to say goodbye, and neither was she. Over the following years, she returned again and again, performing to sold-out crowds in Scotland and England in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, and even in 2022. In 2019, she was also invited to headline the 100th anniversary celebration of the Delaware State Fair. Beyond music, Gladys Knight made her mark in film and television. She made her acting debut in 1976 with the lead role in Pipe Dreams, followed by appearances in films like Hollywood Homicide, 2003, and Tyler Perry's I Can Do Bad All by Myself, 2009. She also brought her talent to television. In 1975, she starred in The Gladys Knight and the PIPS Show, and in the decades that followed, she guest-starred on hit shows such as Benson, The Jeffersons, A Different World, Living Single, The Jamie Foxx Show, and New York Undercover. Even into her 70s, Knight continued to reinvent herself. In 2012, she joined season 14 of Dancing with the Stars, partnering with Tristan McManus. Then, in 2019, she surprised audiences once again by appearing as Bee on The Masked Singer, where she placed third, proving that even in disguise, her voice was unmistakable. Today, at 81 years old, Gladys Knight remains a living legend, an artist whose music, elegance, and endurance continue to inspire generations. Merrill Bubba Knight, the heart behind the harmony. Merrill Woodlow. Bubba Knight Jr., born on September 4, 1942 in Atlanta, Georgia, is best known as the steady hand and business brain behind Gladys Knight and the PIPS. Now 82 years old, Bubba is not just the older brother of lead vocalist Gladys Knight. He was the group's unofficial leader, quietly managing their affairs while helping to shape their stage presence and sound. From the beginning, Bubba played a key role in turning a casual family act into a professional ensemble. The original group, formed in 1952, included Bubba, Gladys, their sister Brenda, and cousins William and Eleanor Guest. They began singing gospel on Sundays and supper club standards during the week, building their skills long before they topped charts. While Gladys took center stage, Bubba ensured everything offstage ran smoothly. He had a hand in choreography, negotiations, and business decisions, often acting as a bridge between the creative side and the industry. Through the years, Bubba Knight contributed vocals and helped guide the group through every major era, from their early Brunswick years to their Motown hits, their Buddha Records breakthrough with Midnight Train to Georgia, and finally their later success at Columbia and MCA. In 1996, Bubba was honored alongside his groupmates when Gladys Knight and the PIPS were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Outside of music, Bubba has kept a low profile in his personal life. He has been known as the most reserved member of the group, often avoiding the spotlight when not on stage. Friends and family describe him as loyal, practical, and deeply dedicated to those he loves. While much of his private life remains just that, private, his lifelong devotion to family and music speaks volumes. Today, at 82, Bubba Knight lives quietly, having gracefully stepped away from the spotlight, but forever etched into music history as the anchor of one of soul's most enduring groups. William Guest, A Life in Harmony. William Franklin Guest was born on July 2, 1941, in Atlanta, Georgia. As one of the founding members of Gladys Knight and the PIPS, William's voice and presence were constants in the group from its formation in 1952 until their farewell in 1989. Known for his smooth baritone and signature harmonies, William was more than just a background singer. He was part of the vocal fabric that gave the PIPS their sound. Alongside his cousins Gladys Knight, Bubba Knight, and later Edward Patton, he traveled the world, performed to packed arenas, and won multiple Grammy Awards. His career was capped by the group's 1996 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. After the group disbanded, William continued working behind the scenes in the music business. He partnered with fellow Pip Edward Patton to form Patton and Guest Productions, offering mentorship and support to young artists. Following Patton's passing in 2005, William carried on the work through the Crew Entertainment Company, collaborating with Patton's family to keep their shared vision alive. William made his home in Detroit for over 50 years, a city that embraced him as much as he embraced it. Sadly, he passed away on December 24, 2015, at the age of 74, due to congestive heart failure. Edward Patton, the gentle tenor with a lasting voice. Edward Roy Eddie Patton was born on August 27, 1939, and was a key vocal force in Gladys Knight and the Pips from 1959 until the group's final bow in 1989. A cousin of Gladys Knight, Eddie brought a rich tenor and calm presence to the group's dynamic, helping shape its sound through decades of success. Though not as publicly visible as Gladys or Bubba, Patton was considered the quiet strength of the group. He performed on every major hit, toured the world, and stood proudly as the group collected Grammy Awards and, eventually, their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Eddie remained especially close to his bandmates long after the group disbanded. He partnered with William Guest to mentor and manage young performers under Patton and Guest Productions, and he remained a central figure in their extended musical family. Later in life, Eddie faced serious health challenges. He suffered from diabetes and hypertension, which eventually led to a debilitating stroke. He passed away in 2005 at the age of 65. Though he lived much of his life away from the media spotlight, those who knew him remember Edward Patton as kind, generous, and endlessly dedicated to his craft. His voice, soft, steady, and soulful, remains a part of some of the most beloved songs in American music history. Eleanor Guest, the quiet voice behind the harmony. Among the early voices that helped shape Gladys Knight and the Pips, Eleanor Guest holds a special place. Eleanor was not only a founding member of the original Pips in the 1950s, she was also the wife of fellow member William Guest. Together, they shared not just a marriage, but a deep love of music that helped fuel the group's early years. Known for her rich, soulful tone, Eleanor provided vital backing vocals that added warmth and depth to the group's harmonies. Her contributions were especially meaningful during the group's formative gospel and supper club performances, where family ties and vocal blend were everything. But Eleanor's role wasn't limited to background vocals. She was also a talented songwriter, penning several songs that would become part of the group's core repertoire. Though she eventually stepped away from the spotlight to focus on family, her fingerprints remained on the group's sound and legacy. Eleanor Guest passed away on June 19, 2009, at the age of 67. While her name may not be as widely known as some of her bandmates, those who truly know the history of Gladys Knight and the Pips understand the essential role she played, both musically and personally, in helping launch one of soul music's most beloved groups. From the humble beginnings in 1950s Atlanta to international superstardom, each member played a unique and unforgettable role in shaping the sound of soul. As we look back on their incredible journey in 2025, their voices still echo with power, grace, and timeless emotion. Which member of Gladys Knight and the Pips left the biggest impact on you, and why? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tribute, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more stories like this. Bye.